This is Spotlight Omaha. Spotlight Omaha is a local podcast that highlights local businesses and influential movers and shakers in the Omaha business community. Spotlight Omaha is brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing. Now, from the Pyramid Contractor Studios, the host of Spotlight Omaha, Jimmy Allen.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome inside the Spotlight Omaha podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing. Pixel Fire Marketing is a locally owned marketing firm who specializes in website design, creating social media ads, and engaging your business online. If you could benefit from any of that, check out pixelfiremarketing.com today. Joining me, our first ever repeat guest is Toccara Steele from VOS Consulting and Publishing. Thanks for coming back.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Last time we were here, we were talking about your day job, what you do during the day. This is your side business that you started. Can you tell us a little bit what VOS is and what you guys do?
Absolutely. So VOS Consulting and Publishing International, it started in 2017 as simply all things consulting. And so I have been unofficially consulting people on how to start their business. I call it from concept to product, concept to service, concept to whatever it is that they wanted to build since 2012.
Sure.
And so I kind of was like, I think it's time to make this thing official. So August 17th, 2017 is when I created my LLC. VOS does stand for something.
Okay.
VOS stands for Vault of Steel. So thank you. So my last name is Steele.
Yep.
And so my logo is a vault with fire in it. And I love to think, and now it's been proven that I help my clients to ignite that fire within themselves to be able to produce what it is that they desire, whether it's a book, a brand, a business. And so, back in 2017, it was all things consulting. 2019 is when I included all things publishing. And so here we are now going into 2025.
I want to ask why? Why publishing? I know you're a writer. We're going to get that. Is that why?
I have been writing books myself since 2014. And I have, in my adult world,
sure,
I'll say. As a kid, I used to write.
Yep.
And so
my degree's in journalism, so I can appreciate this.
So my mom would, like put me in my room for punishment.
Sure.
Back in our day, because I think we're around the same age, it's safe to say, I had like a diary.
Yep.
So I would write, and things would kind of start with me sharing about how my mama made me mad, and I can't believe she put me on punishment.
Yep.
And then it turned into creative writing, and I didn't know at that age that's what I was doing.
Sure.
So I was.
Because that time you were just venting the book in front of you.
Right, yeah. Right. And then I thought it was locked. We had a fake key. That's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But at that time, I realized that that's where the passion came from. And so I was a part of like the Gifted program as a kid. I was part of authorship programs as a kid, writing books and things of that nature, just utilizing that creative genius. And then I was presented with an opportunity to be in a co-author book project back in 2014. And that relit my fire in my own vault to realize, you got something here. And so I've been writing books ever since.
You've had a couple very successful ones. You've been an Amazon bestseller 2 different times.
Yeah.
When we talk about, because listen, you got a couple in front of you here too. But when we talk about taking your passion and putting it on paper, what is the biggest struggle for you, and what makes it easier for you?
I love this. So I would say the biggest struggle, even myself, but typically clients, is where to start. So there's so much going on through our heads, and especially for writing from a non-fictional standpoint, which is typically a self-help book, us telling about our life.
Sure.
Where do you start with that, right? Especially the older that we get. Mm-hmm. And so I have a way of helping my clients to really hone in on what's important at this season, and understanding that they don't have to write this big, long book, because people don't read big, long books anymore. Yeah. People love the short read, something where it's like less than 100 pages. They can get in and get out and run. I tell my clients. So, yeah.
What is your favorite thing that you've written?
Ooh.
I assume
it's
you've
a tie. It's a tie.
Pick your favorite child right now.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Thank God I don't have kids, right?
Right.
This one's been really good to me. It's Identity Blueprint: Keys to Unlocking Your True Self, and I wrote it in 28 days, and it's basically...
Wow.
Yeah. It's basically a book where I'm able to share how important it is to get to understanding who you are, your purpose, your gifts, your talents, And a lot of times people live what I call a surface life or a surface living where everything's on the surface. It's pretty easy for them. And so when they are looking to figure out what purpose looks like, they're scared to dig.
Sure.
And a lot of the nutrients of our gifts are beneath.
Do you think that's like, because people are like, if I open that door, there's a few skeletons in that closet?
That's exactly what it is.
All right, sure.
So it's, my dad always would tell me that the rear view is smaller for a reason, and then their windshield is bigger. So a lot of times people are like, oh, if I go back to that spot, am I going to get stuck? And so that's where I keep my clients accountable. Like, you don't have to get stuck in that old place. Like,
and that's the consulting portion.
That's the consulting portion. You get it. Yep. So it's just that, understanding that there's valuable things in our past and how to grab those things and pull them forward without grabbing everything and getting stuck in that place. So yes, you're dead on.
Are most of the people that you're talking to more a fictional writer, non-fictional, or is it a healthy combination of both?
The majority of the people that I work with write from a non-fictional standpoint. They're wanting to write about either their life, their triumphs, or either they're entrepreneurs that are writing about truths and stories and putting it into a book from that standpoint.
A little bit of their spin on it. Sure.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite author that you kind of mirror your style after, or is there somebody growing up that you looked at and said, that's who I would like to be from an accomplishment standpoint?
Okay, so one of my favorite authors when I was younger was R.L. Stine. I'm dating myself.
Yeah, who didn't love Goosebumps? Yeah, absolutely.
That was one of my favorite authors as a child. I would say growing up now, I love Dr. Trim. Her name's Dr. Cindy Trim. She writes amazing books. He's deceased now, but the late Dr. Miles Monroe. I have read some of his books. So those are like the three that I would say.
Okay.
Especially R.L. Stine as a kid.
Sure.
I'd be like, let's go to the library, you know? Yeah.
Who, when we talk, like, because we mentioned the last time here, I want to let everybody know you are still with Lutheran Family Services. So anybody that's wondering, you're still there. But
we're still there.
We started talking about this a little bit, but we had some technical difficulties. There was a lot going on. You're from Chicago.
I am.
How much did your time in Chicago help mold you into this business owner, entrepreneur, versus your time in Nebraska, and how have they differed from your lifestyle?
You are definitely a journalism a fan. Definitely. I love it. I would say that the majority of the time that let's back up. So I spent a lot of time in central Illinois, so Champaign, Urbana.
Very far from Chicago. Yeah.
2.5 hours. Yeah. It's not that far. So my time spent there and then my time spent in Chicago, kind of mixing those two together, really helped to launch VOS. I was around a lot of authors when I was living in Champaign, and just understanding like that's where everything was kind of reunited for me, like everything connected when I had the opportunity back in 2014. Sure. And so I never thought that I would be where I'm at to even be a publisher, writing books the way that I am, and then talking about consulting and coaching people to be in this space. I always thought I was going to be a lawyer and eventually a judge because I love to argue. And so,
no, I don't get that from you at all.
So being in this space is really neat, but I definitely would say, being a Chicago native, I spent a lot of time at the libraries growing up as a kid. That was one of the things that my mom was very intentional about.
Kids, ask your parents what a library was.
Yeah, that part. Yeah. You know, and it's funny you say that because I ran across my old library card as a kid, probably like about a couple months ago as I was cleaning up some stuff.
A box.
Right. Yeah. And so, you know, that we spent a lot of time. I was like actually at the library like once a week as a kid.
Yep, same.
And so my love for books was cultivated by those experiences. And then even when I think about it now, I love the questions. You're making me really think. The school libraries actually had some really great books. And so, you know, back in our day, we had library time. Right. And so we would go and pick a book off the shelf and, you know, all those good things. So I would say my childhood has a really great play in the way that I do things now.
We're catching up with Toccara Steele of VOS Consulting and Publishing here on the Spotlight Omaha podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing inside the Pyramid Contractor Studio. When we talk about growth and wanting to, obviously you're taking people under your wing to some sort and helping them. What does growth for VOS look like the next 2 to 3 to 5 years?
Ooh. This is being recorded for quality purposes.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'm really excited about is expanding my reach outside of the country.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I have international on my name for a reason. And so back during the pandemic, I did a lot of talks internationally. So want to get back.
Like where?
Europe, the UK, Africa.
Very cool.
And it was during the pandemic. So
Not scary at all.
right.
Yeah.
And just expanding that reach, because there's other people that love the concept of authorship and not knowing how to tap into that. So prime example, my team, I have a staff member in Kenya and another one in Lagos, Nigeria.
Okay.
And so not only are they staff members, but I also help cultivate their authorship journey and helping them to understand the power of their entrepreneurship walk and how they can add ebooks and different services and products. And so there's some things in the works with me and Timothy, which you'll meet him soon.
Yeah.
And just mentorship in different countries and helping them to understand how authorship is a form of entrepreneurship and just entrepreneurship as a whole.
In your bio on your website,
geez.
It says you want to be able to help women of faith be able to reach their goals. Why is that such a big deal for you?
My faith is everything. I know that I wouldn't be where I was without God. And so I'm very passionate about helping others understand the power of their testimony through the things that God has allowed for them to triumph through. And sometimes in life, we don't realize how far we've gotten because just life, we walk through life.
One foot in front of the other.
Yeah, so you don't have those times to reflect. And I also use biblical principles with helping my clients to understand the power of the scribe and understanding the power of authorship and just the legacy that we leave through, writing. So my audience has always been, it has not always been, I've honed in on Christian women because I can relate to that and I can relate to different triumphs that we go through.
And we talked about that last time we were in here about people that look like us and representation is a big deal throughout all communities. I'm glad that it's becoming on the forefront and talking about it. Why is it a big deal for you to talk to little girls that look like you, that come from places that you look like, to give them a building block?
That's this book.
There it is.
Jimmy. This is Daddy, Where Art Thou? So one of the things that I love about this book is that that's me. That's my dad. So growing up, I didn't know who my dad was. And so that's why you see like the daddy bubble. And so I just knew he was tall. I remember as a little girl, I only saw him a couple of times. And so when I think about the representation of like girls like me who grew up without their dads and just being able to pour back into that community and helping them to understand that, yes, you can be all that you desire to be, even if daddy's not around. So that's what this book is all about, is that understanding who you are in the community that surrounds you and that there's love even within the community that brings that.
Because it takes a village to raise a child.
It does take a village to raise a child. I get that now, even though I don't have kids, but I realize the village that was surrounded.
I don't even know if a village is enough.
I told you if you need a godmama, we can talk about that. No, but I want for little girls to understand that they don't have to live in a place of rejection and abandonment because daddy wasn't there. And those are some of the things that I had to really work on and understand that, my abandonment issues stemmed from somewhere. That goes back to even this book.
Yeah.
Just that digging deep and understanding the roots therein. And it had nothing to do with me. And a lot of times we place blame on ourselves unknowingly.
So when we talk about consulting, a lot of it to some degree is get the notebook out and let them sit on the black couch for a little while, right? How were you able to look at some of the trauma in your life, overcome it, and look at that as a positive to help teach other people?
I love this. So I did a lot of journaling when I was really in a dark place because I didn't want everybody to know where I was. I was ashamed.
Sure.
If that makes sense. So now I really tell my clients that they don't have to be ashamed of where they're at, but figure out what's going to get them out. And journaling is, statistics show, journaling is so powerful just for your mental health. Yeah. And so sometimes when clients don't know where to start with writing a book at all, I challenge them to set a timer. Don't allow anything to like disrupt that time.
Sure. And
start journaling. And you're going to see what comes out. And that's a lot of what has helped me through my trauma, and also seeing a therapist and also being real with my hurt and my pain.
Yeah.
And not trying to mask it and understanding like, okay, this is something that a lot of people deal with. I'm not isolating myself any longer, because sometimes we tend to isolate ourselves when we're in a place of pain.
Do you? This might be a little too much.
No, you're good.
Do you feel like getting to that dark place is what made you as successful as you are today?
Wow. I do feel like it had a very pivotal role. So I was sharing on a stage back in November. Shout out to CJ Jackson, the Phenomenal Woman Conference. And a lot of times as women especially, we feel that there is a need to cover up our hurt because there's so many people relying on us to be this,
be mom,
this,
be
this,
aunt,
and
be
this.
grandma, be the healer.
Be the healer, be the superwoman, and when we need saving ourselves.
Yep.
And so, and I was talking and sharing about how I would do my 8 to 5, come home, and it would be dark, like literally dark in my house, and I wouldn't see the light of day until it was time for me to do it all over. And I remember that place being a place of pain, hurt, dealing with rejection, my abandonment issues, severely depressed, but I can't let anybody see that.
Sure.
My name's Toccara, and just that whole stance. And at the time I had a fancy title, all that, right? So I had to operate in the title, but not deal with my hurt and my pain. And so the more that I evolved as a woman and started saying, okay, this is something I need to really address because this isn't healthy. And what really did it is someone called me out. And I was like, okay, if she's seeing it, who else is seeing it?
Right.
So I was like, okay, it's time to do something. And she really helped me to walk through, like, okay, it's time to go see someone to get this help.
I want to go back to writing for a minute because you mentioned the setting the timer portion of it.
Yeah.
And writing in today's day and age is so much, different than even 20, 25 years ago.
Absolutely.
Technology. There's a ton of distractions.
Yeah.
We live in a world of ADHD. It has turned up to 55.
Right.
When you're talking to a young writer who has always grown up in a generation with technology and Twitter readily available at their fingertips, so they don't have to write a book to get their opinion out there. They can set out a 250 character tweet. It's out in the world. How do you explain to somebody the power of a book over social media, and what's the difference?
So this is interesting. We're even having this conversation. I don't have a book on display, but I do help the young authors to get their books out. And a lot of times with them, it's realizing that their voice matters and understanding that you don't have to put everything on social media for your voice to matter.
You don't.
Even
to not let
even
your voice
adults,
matter. Just
right?
Don't hit tweet.
Don't hit share. And so helping them to understand the power of writing things down is also from a mental standpoint. It's healthy to literally sit there and type or to write and to get those feelings and emotions out, and understanding that not everything that you get out on paper or in, as you're typing is something that needs to be shared at that moment. Have somebody to help you to figure out what needs to be shared, right? What needs to be shared and the why. Yeah. Why do you really want to share this?
Is that the biggest miss when we talk about people putting their thoughts in, is the why portion of it? Because not everything is good information, right?
Not everything is good information. And so it's a couple things. Knowing your target audience is really important.
Good point.
So, who do you really want to influence? Who do you really want to speak to? Why do you want to speak to them? Where would you find them? Where do they hang out? All of those important things are things that I talk to people about when they're on that journey of writing a book, because you're not just writing it for yourself.
Do you think that's the biggest hurdle to get over, is you have to understand who you're writing for? It's not for you.
Yes.
That was, when I got into radio, that was my biggest struggle, was I wanted to talk about what I wanted to talk about. Right. I was like, well, I'm listening every night anyway. Why does it matter what I want to talk about?
Yes. And that's the thing. And so understanding that all of these books, even if it's by me or someone else, it's not about me.
Right.
It's about my story being able to help others people, or, a story being able to help people, and understanding who you're supposed to be talking to.
I think I told you this story last time off air when you were here, but when we first started doing after hours, we were doing the high school football stuff.
Yes.
And I was at a networking meeting, and I said, hey, if anybody knows a high school football team that would like to be interviewed, we'd love to have them on our show. And one lady raised her hand and said, why don't you interview female athletes? And I went, boop, boop, boop. That's a really good idea. So, and ever since then, and shout out to Summer Franco with US Bank, because that's who called me out. We've made sure to interview at least one male and one female team, because it's not about what I want. It's it's about what the community is asking for. So and that's what I tell anybody that's doing a podcast or radio or whatever. It's not about what you want.
No.
Make sure you're talking to your listeners and the people that are tuning in every single day.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the biggest struggles is, one, people are like, well, no one wants to hear what I want to say. And that's not true.
Not true at all. Yeah.
There's people out there that are waiting for you.
Podcasts are taking off for a reason.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Exactly. Live stream shows too.
Yep.
Yes.
And we're catching up with Toccara Steele here of VOS Consulting and Publishing on the Spotlight Omaha podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing inside the Pyramid Contractors studio. I want to talk about you for a second.
Sure.
I want to talk about entrepreneur. You have an 8 to 5. You're taking people under your wing. You're building a business. How do you do it all and kind of keep a schedule?
I love this question too. It's all about your 168. We have 168 hours in a week.
Yes, we do.
How are we maximizing that time or not utilizing that time? And studies show that after we take care of kids, we do the 9 to 5, we go to the gym, we go to church, we do all these things, we have typically anywhere from 25 to 35 hours of time left over that's unutilized.
Think about what you could do with that, folks.
Think about what you can do with that. And you don't have to be scrolling on TikTok for 5 hours.
No, you do not.
You know, so how are you utilizing that time? And so I'm very big about understanding what goes into my world from a vision and mission standpoint. If it's not in alignment with what I am here to do on this earth, then I am learning how to respectfully say no.
That's an interesting. Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
Because I read something the other day and it hit me in my soul. It said, when you say yes, you're taking on other people's problems.
Woo!
But when you say no, you're also leaving a helping hand out there that's reaching up. How do you divide the two?
That's really good, Jimmy. So when you think about no, a lot of times no is not a bad word.
Sure.
You have to assess what's going on in your life and the capacity that you are willing to carry, and understanding that if you're not going to say yes, somebody else will, and it's okay. But you don't want to neglect everything else that you have on the table to say yes, because you're not going to be able to give that undivided attention to whatever you're saying yes to. And so I'm very mindful of that now. I mean, I know my gifts, I know my talents, and I know where I can be doing things. But again, that 168, that's all I got.
So a little bit of outside, for sure.
I can't borrow anybody else's.
One of my favorite sayings is, if you need something done, ask somebody who's busy, because they'll make sure it's taken care of. For lack of a better term, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Wow. I want to be a philanthropist. I want to be able to pour back into other people's missions. Like, one of the things.
Why is that such a big deal for you? Because that's the third time you've said it.
One of the things that really hurts my heart is to see the homeless. And I think what happened for me is, growing up in Chicago, you see a lot of homeless people. Whether it's underneath the viaducts, going down Michigan Avenue, or Lakeshore Drive. And so the homeless really have my heart, especially vets that are homeless. And then working with Lutheran Family Services for the past 2 years, my eyes have really been awakened to...
Free plug for John Barry's book, Veteran Led. It's great, by the way, if you're looking at it.
I'm going to check it out.
It's fantastic.
One of the things that also burns my heart is when people are coming out of jail or prison and not having proper housing.
Ooh, that's something that's really big in Omaha right now.
It
too.
is.
Everything that's going on with B&B Boxing, trying to help with that. Mayor Gene Stothard building that land down there in North Omaha. You spent the majority of your life in the Champaign, Chicago area. You called Omaha home for 2 years. Why is Omaha the best place for you to be able to start your business and kind of? I know we're talking international. We're talking the African continent where your coworkers are. But why is Omaha the best place for you to A, call home, and B, build your business?
A, call home because God sent me here.
Okay.
And
pretty good reason.
Right. As I was packing up my house, I literally heard that I was here for community development. And so I don't take that lightly when he tells me what I need to be here for. A lot of people are asleep on Omaha. There's a lot of things here that are moving and shaking. Yep. And I tend to lean into my real estate background. When you see cranes in the sky, when you see hills of dirt, when you see a lot of construction going on.
Smells like money.
Smells like money. It smells like money. And so, being a part of the growth of Omaha, since I've been here for 2 years, I'm proud that I'm here. I miss Chicago a lot, but.
Okay, why did that too? But why? Are you No offense, Chi-Town.
I miss home because my parents are there.
Sure.
I have my family's there. But I love being here. I love the fact that I don't have to sit in traffic all day being in Chicago.
Preach.
I love the networking. I love the
Yeah.
people that I've become friends with here. And then just shout out to Co-Black Tech and Nebraska Writers Collective. I sit on their boards and I absolutely love
What was the first one? Sorry.
Co-Black Tech,
What's that?
all things tech.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Yeah. And so I sit on both of those boards and I love that. I love being able to serve. And so I found my home where I'm happy with everything that I'm doing, from my job, my relationship, my church. I'm happy.
What church do you mind telling what church?
Glory
it is?
Tabernacle Church in
Okay.
Bellevue.
Just want to give a shout out to those.
Yeah.
listeners. How much, like, God calls you here. You're big in your faith.
Yeah.
Your parents are back in Chicago.
Yeah.
How scared? Like, because it kind of like because throughout this first 25 minutes, it seemed like you're like, I'm going to Omaha, I'm gone. But now it kind of feels like there was a story there. How big of a deal was it for you to be able to pack up and leave?
It was hard.
Yeah.
It
Why?
was major. Woo, you gonna pull out the tears. My bonus dad, I don't like to call him stepdad. In 2021, he had open heart surgery and he stroked. And so he's
Okay.
learning how to walk and talk.
Sure.
And so I felt like I was leaving my mom
Yeah.
with all of that burden.
You're being pulled, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then yet I'm being assigned to come
Sick.
here.
Yep.
And so
Your mom was probably like, where the hell is Omaha, Nebraska?
that, and also just realizing the power of family. I had a conversation with my uncle when I was presented with the job here, and he said something, and I will never forget it. He's like, it's time for you to live.
I love
He's
that.
like, we got this here. And so I'm living, I'm happy.
It's back to the yes/no conversation, right?
Absolutely. It's just understanding your purpose allows for you to operate in a place of joy and happiness. And not saying that I didn't have purpose back in Chicago. It's way different.
Yeah, agreed. I don't know. I don't remember if I've told you this story or not. I don't think I've ever showed. This is episode number 322, and I don't know if I've ever told the story. So I spent a year in Daytona Beach,
No.
and I got out of a really bad time in my life. I'm not gonna throw anybody under the bus. I had an opportunity to move down there, help take care of my grandmother, and I was at my place where I was coming home and turning the lights off and not good with what was, because that's why I asked this question. And I chose to move down there, and then a month after being there, my grandmother chose to move to North Carolina.
Wow. Wow.
But my uncle was like, you stay here, you'll love it, figure it out, blah, blah. I fell in love with the place. I was living 6 doors down from the beach. I started to find happiness again. And then I got a call to come back to Omaha and for a job, and I was torn. I went down, the gas station was 4 doors down, right next to the beach. Walked down there. On my way back, I found a 50-cent piece. And I said, I'm going to flip this coin 7 times. Heads, I go back to Omaha. Tails, I'm going to stay in Daytona. And it came up 4 heads in a row. And I went, well, if that's not a sign, I don't know what is.
Wow.
And obviously, I moved back, started my business, met my wife. We have 3 beautiful children. But it's just kind of crazy how sometimes in life, there's all the reasons to stay, right? And there's
all the reasons to stay.
And there's always a fear to not do something. And then
Boom.
whether it be him or whether it be just the science of the universe that tell you, no, it's time to go, how it just works out. It's crazy.
And it's interesting you say that, because I just went home for Christmas. I surprised my mom and dad.
Oh, very cool.
And
Thanks for coming back. Time to do this podcast.
right? And it's always great to be home,
Yeah.
but it's always great to get back to the life that you have come
Sure.
accustomed to and
Did
you
it
love.
feel like you weren't at home when you went home?
It always feels like home.
Okay.
But there's like that sense of it's time for me to get back
Sure.
to, what I'm building and what makes me the happiest. Not saying that, I'm not happy being around my parents,
Sure.
but this is my new world and I'm happy, And happiness is not something that's easy to come by, if we're going to be very honest.
Yeah, it's very rare, actually.
Yeah.
My wife, and I'm sorry, this is not my podcast.
No, I
so
love
apologize.
it.
But my wife and I were talking about this the other day, and it's like, you can't let your family interrupt your family. You know what I mean?
I
And
do.
It's like, it's like you have to love your parents, you have to love your siblings, you have to love the people that made you who you are, but you also got to look at you and your life.
Yes.
And it goes back to the yes/no conversation again as well. When we talk about the distractions and all the hours in a week, and listen, bills got to be paid, rent's due every month, right?
Right.
But it's one thing to punch a clock, but you also got to help build invest in yourself.
Yeah.
What advice do you give to somebody that's a young entrepreneur thinking, I can't punch that clock again on Monday. I need to start working on me. What piece of advice do you give that person?
Well, I am one that believes in make sure that you're ready to step into entrepreneurship on a full-time basis, because it's no joke.
Sure.
And make sure that you have the skill sets to be able to run your entrepreneurship.
That's
journey.
a big one.
That's a huge one. And a lot of times we learn them on our 8 to 5.
Yep.
And so make sure that you have the mindset to really run with the vision, and making sure that you have things in place to be able to carry out what you want to do from an entrepreneurial standpoint. And I'm gonna tell you, some people make entrepreneurship look super easy. It's not. It's not.
What is the worst piece of advice you've ever been given? Not the response I thought I was going to get, but okay.
Because my grandma says this, and shout out grandma, but she would always tell me to spend a lot and save a little.
That's horrible advice. Okay, I'll give you that.
Right. And so, I'll be like, what? And so I remember her telling me that. I'm like, no. But she's really good about saving. But she does spend, and she's happy. But I remember being told that. I was like, what?
What is the if somebody is looking to be looking to publish their work or needs some advice on a book? How can they find you? What's the best way to get in touch?
Absolutely. So I would say you can text 708-872-5343 and text info, and either me or someone from my team will get back with you.
You're such a millennial. I think that's the first time we've had somebody say text, not call or email. That's Toccara Steele. You can check out all of her work at VOS Consulting and Publishing. Thank you so much for coming in and doing this today.
Me.
I appreciate it.
No problem.
Our first repeat offender. We appreciate you being here. This has been the Spotlight Omaha podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing inside the Pyramid Contractor Studio. We got a full slate this week. We'll be back at 11 tomorrow. Catch up with my good friend, another Chicago native.
Whoop, whoop.
Randall Crutcher will be here tomorrow talking about the insurance game, his time as a volunteer assistant basketball coach, and all he's doing in the community as well. We'll see you tomorrow at 11 here on the Spotlight Omaha podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing inside the Pyramid Contractor Studio.